I absolutely love the car. It is so good. I would definitely buy it. Alright, so it's been about 24 hours since I last drove the all-new 2024 Acura Integra Type S. There is so much to unpack and discuss. Long story short, it's that good. It is not overhyped. It is so much fun. I've driven it twice, so that's given me way more context than even my first impressions from my first drive are totally different than when I was able to drive it the second time. And then a nice thing too was I actually did a ride along with someone else as they were driving it, and I was in the back seat. That's probably the best thing I could have done. Not only do you get to get a vibe of what other people will feel in the passenger seat, but you can detect certain strengths and weaknesses too, as someone's driving, spiritedly in different places of what's happening in the back, especially considering that it's front wheel drive. So I feel like you're gonna feel different things depending on what car you've been driving already in the past, stuff like that. So for context, I've driven a ton of cars. I've driven the new FL5. I didn't get to really push that one. I've driven the FK8. That one I got a really good couple days in, spirited driving, chill driving. I've been in Audis, BMWs, Lexus. I've driven pretty much all the new cars for the most part, and Acura knocked it out of the park. It is so incredible. It reminds me of, and the car salesman actually said it best, and I didn't think about it because I couldn't put my fingers on it. I was like, this car reminds me of something else, but of course a better version. The way the suspension drives when you are, getting on it, and it is in the Sport Plus setting where it is a little bit stiffer, it reminds me a lot of the Subaru WRX. The way you can kind of feel the road, but of course this is way more refined. And then it also reminds me of the FK8, where it has that balanced daily driver feel, but you can adjust the settings, because the FK8 was a lot more comfortable in my opinion than the FL5, especially in comfort mode. Like, man, that thing was butter. So it's so incredible, really good. And of course, when you get in a car, you drive it for the first time, it's always super exciting and stuff like that, but you need like a couple days to process what you really experience, and not just being like stuck in this honeymoon phase of the car. Like, you gotta really soak it in, the good stuff that you like, the things that are not as great. So I'll start off with a couple of the negatives. There's plenty of positives on this car. But currently I drive two all-wheel drive cars, so of course that's going to have its pros versus, front-wheel drive platform. I love them all. I've had several Hondas in the past, huge Honda Acura person. But what I did notice is there's zero comparison to how the Germans engineer suspension. Like, I love Honda and Acura, but like, obviously there's a much bigger budget sometimes when you're dealing with some of these German cars. But even some of the cheaper cars, the way a German car can soak up bumps, not even just like, for comfort and things like that, but even just in a sporty setting, there was a couple of moments where we were, going at a pretty good rate, someone else is driving, and we hit a couple bumps with a little bit of an angle. And if it was a German car, even a base A3, it wouldn't have been so upset like this one. This one I felt a lot more sway, where that was something that gave me the idea that I feel like if I personally owned it and I was really going to be driving it, either on the track or whatever the case is, or even just around town, like, those limitations are obvious, but I think it could use a little bit better springs in the back. The car rides really great, but like, that told me a lot of like, okay, this is kind of the limits. And obviously it's made for the street, so I'm not trying to say it's a track car, but neither are two of my other cars that I drive daily. And over that same situation, I wouldn't have felt as much of a jolt and lightness like I did in the Acura Integra Type S. We went over that bump and it was almost as if the car you could feel the lightness of the car at that point and things like that. So I mean, it's definitely not a horrible thing, but it's just something I noticed. Like, there's no comparison when it comes to like suspension dampening and spring rates and stuff like that of German cars. Pros and cons to both, for sure. The other thing I noticed, I don't know if I didn't adjust the settings as good as I should have, but the ELS audio system is one of like the greats. And in the Acura TLX Type S, it was exactly what I pictured, like perfection, the crispiest highs with like a unique clarity that you only get from the best of speakers. And this one was pretty disappointing, even like in the high range, but especially the low range. Like, maybe it was just the settings. I played a couple different songs, but I was just expecting a lot more. But again, I need to drive it again, because sometimes you just, whatever settings you had or whatever other things, it's a new car, I don't have it daily, so it's not like I have that stuff dialed in. But first impressions, I thought it was going to be way better, but we'll see. I could be way off. Another thing I noticed is the seats in the rear are not as comfortable as the front. I mean, not a huge deal. Obviously, the driver's the priority. They prioritize the right things for sure. But I did notice that after sitting in the back of the car for about, I don't know, I was on a 30-minute drive in the back, basically. So, yeah, that was something I noticed. Speaking of the back, the build quality in the back is great. The seats are a little less comfortable, but it is what it is. The one thing I loved is when you are in the back seat, you hear everything. So especially considering that this is a car that's meant to be fun, someone getting in it and they're like, hey, let's ride with you in your fun car, they're gonna want some sort of cool experience and be able to hear sounds, especially if you have friends and family that are car enthusiasts. This car delivers that in the back seat, like in a really great way. So I heard all the exhaust. Like, I probably hear it better than the driver, especially considering I'm so much closer to it, but it was very entertaining from the back seat. I really enjoyed it, and I could feel that they did take that into consideration. So I loved being in the back seat, which is why I think everyone, regardless of what kind of car you're driving, you should always sit in the back seat so you can get an understanding really of how it feels. You can take in the view, you can see how a car feels on turns, you can understand weaknesses, things like that. So the back seat, super fun. The way this car handles, obviously it's front wheel drive, but it has so much mechanical grip, and I feel like a lot of it obviously has to do with suspension, and what they've done there, excellent job, crushed it. No surprise there, Acuras have always had really great handling, but I believe the width of the tires is what's really giving you that sensation of being so planted, because 265 section tires is really wide. So as you're driving it, you're just feeling so much control, for lack of a better word. Like, it feels so nimble, so planted, and then because there's so much mechanical grip, if you're in an all-wheel drive car currently now, or you've had them in the past, that feeling of just being able to always feel this sensation of control, and not that you're like at the limit, on a basic little U-turn, or carving the mountains and stuff like that. This gives you, I'd say, 70% of that feeling. Only time, of course, you notice is at launch. Like, you're not gonna do the same as you would with the all-wheel drive car, certain things like that. But man, just overall, as the car is moving, it reminds me, like I said, of the FK8, where you just have this sensation of this almost could be all-wheel drive, the way it handles, until you hit those moments. That's when it's obvious that it's not. So, incredible machine. I was smiling the whole time driving that car, and I'm glad I took it for a test drive, the second time, because that's when I was really able to get a solid understanding of, what this car is. And several people had already driven it, so everything was warmed up. Like, transmission was super warmed up, engine, tires. So I got that advantage versus the first time I drove it. It was, still slightly cold, and I could just tell the car wasn't like at its peak. This time around, oh man, this thing was so alive, so incredible. Would I pay the price for the car? Absolutely. I think it's worth it. There's a couple things I don't like just overall with the Integra, one of my pet peeves is the dash. I wish it was the same exact, just that long, metal looking strip that the Civic has. That's just perfect. I wish it had that same exact layout, but it is what it is. The shifter that it came with, I thought that optional shifter that has more of the like S2000 look, I thought that one was more of like a polished chrome where it has that like shiny look to it. It's more of a matte finish, so that's really dope because it looks really good in person. And yeah, I really like it. I would definitely option it with that. The one I test drove the second time had the Alcantara steering wheel. I don't know if I would get that. It looks so good, like I love it, but I just don't know if I would really want to get that. But there are some other options where I'm like, these are a must. The steering wheel is still 50-50 for me. I love how it feels. I love how it looks. It takes the experience to the next level, like automatically, but I don't know if I'd click the box at the end of the day. I'm not sure. The ones that I would for sure select are the carbon fiber mirror caps. Definitely a must. That's a game changer on any car. I actually have that same type of look on my current A3, and it just makes the car look so much better. Just literally those two caps on the mirror on the side. I think that's a must option. And then the carbon fiber spoiler for the rear, hatch lid, whatever you want to call it. That I think is definitely a must. It looks really good. The black is cool too, like it's not bad, but those two carbon accent pieces look really good. The one that I don't think I would click, depending on the color too, is the blacked out emblems, especially for the Acura logo. That to me is a little bit optional, and I actually like the contrast of the silver one that comes standard with whatever color you're getting. It just stands out. The other one's a little too blacked out and it just blends in. It's not bad, but in person, after seeing it and seeing the one that had the silver, I think I'd just keep the silver. And then a couple other accessories that I think I'd actually option would be the certain all-weather floor mats. I would do basically on that rear bumper the splash guards. I think that would make the car look even more chunky and aggressive. Plus it's functional to keep that part clean in the back, especially if you live somewhere with a lot of roads with rocks and the weather, snow, blah blah blah. So yeah, the car is so good. It feels very light on its feet. It just really gives me really great FK8 vibes, and I loved how that car drove. You get a lot of incredible sound, which I haven't even talked about, and I think this is such an important part of the car, and the biggest differentiator for sure is the way it sounds is money. Oh, they tuned it so good. So even on upshift, downshifts, you're hearing so much character in the exhaust, and it makes it for an enjoyable experience for everyone involved. And you're hearing these subtle burbles and pops and bangs and stuff like that, but it's not in a bad Mustang, or not Mustang, AMG way where it's annoying. It's this more Japanese version of what that sounds like, so it's taken down a notch, but it has a lot of character. You're hearing that all the time as you're driving, or if you want to be in comfort mode, you can just chill the car out. But the sound, incredible, and I think that makes the experience a lot better. And then you don't notice the fake engine sound until, I shouldn't say engine sound, but that fake engine exhaust sound they kind of add on. You don't notice that until the higher rev range. That's when you notice it a little more, but it's definitely not as bad as the FL5. That just sounds terrible. But as they mentioned in the videos, this is a North American car, so they have different rules that they could kind of stretch, which I still kind of think is funny, because if you listen to a G80 M3 that also lives in Germany and stuff, it still sounds really great. So I don't really know, but anyway, exhaust, incredible. What you hear online and through your phone or even on your TV, it's not picking up all the little things that you would hear in person driving it. I absolutely love the car. It is so good. I would definitely buy it. I think it's great. There's a couple of things on the interior where Honda and Acura always date themselves compared to the Germans. They go with this more, it's always futuristic, but still like so minimal where it doesn't put it in a certain time or era. Honda and Acura haven't figured out that special sauce yet. So there's a few things like on the inside where, you know, you can tell when the car was made and stuff. Overall, I think it's an incredible package. I can highly recommend it. If you are someone that's going to be tracking your car all the time, you know, go FL5. If you're realistically maybe going to go to the track like once or twice a year, I think you might as well go with the Integra, unless you really just want the FL5. I love both cars, but now that I've driven the Integra Type S 2 times at this point, that's the one I would go with. I think that offers the best well-rounded experience, and sound alone, as well as even just design. Like, I love the front end on the Integra Type S. It looks good from more angles, and if you are, let's say, somebody that's planning on getting a lot of content, pictures and videos of the car, I know this sounds funny, but the Integra is going to be a lot easier. And I could say that because I am a content creator and I have been getting content of the Civic Type R. It's so dope, and that car has so much presence in person, but the way the Integra Type S is just looks a lot, it just looks a lot more appealing. It's hard to capture the FL5 in a really good way on camera, regardless of the lens. Like, you can do some stuff for sure, but it's just something to think about. I know that's very random, but there's probably a few of you out there that is like, which one should I get? Try to test drive one like ASAP, especially while these demos are out and you can just do, you know, what you need to do to get a feel for the car. Like, try to drive it ASAP. That way you get an understanding of really what it's like, and don't just drive it once. It's not gonna be enough. Like, while there's this 30-day period or whatever to drive these cars, try to drive it, you know, more than one time. Check it out in person, see what you do and don't like about the vehicle. Otherwise, you're going to be missing out on a lot of key things, and your first impression may not be enough to give you everything you need. Can you tell a lot within the first like 30 seconds of driving the car? Absolutely. But it's not until you really spend more time with it, drive it in the different modes, in different areas, try to find a good driving route. If not, you're going to be like pretty bored of the car, or disappointed that you can't really experience what everyone else is saying about the car. So try to find a good location, some residential areas or back roads. If that's kind of close by your dealership, you won't be disappointed. And one thing I want to add is the copper wheels that are optional. To me, online, everything I've seen, regardless of who's filming it and the color grade and things like that, they look like they had more of a red finish to them. Trust me when I say it's actually a lot more, you know, bronze and copper looking, like you would want it to look in person. But in the pictures and videos, everything's coming out like it has this red speck to it, and it just throws off the color and doesn't look as good. But trust me, in person, it's the perfect color. Like, it actually looks like what you want out of a wheel that color. So definitely check it out. If you are thinking about getting those wheels, I've seen it on the white car. I haven't seen it on the other, so I don't know what that looks like in person. But on the white, man, it makes the personality of the car go up a couple notches, because the original car that I drove had the, I think it's shark gray wheels. Those look great. I think it's perfect. But the other ones on the white, man, if that's your personality and your vibe, and if you kind of want to take it up just a couple notches without getting too crazy on the car, I think that's what's going to make it stand out. Even this guy that was in a, I think an early 2000s 911 pulled up next to me during the test drive. Like, what is that? I've had a feeling he wouldn't know what it is based on the generation of 911 that he had, but he was like, that thing looks really good and interesting. So the wheels, for sure, they look great. If you can get those, I would say go for it if that's your cup of tea. If not, the shark gray, can't go wrong. Very classic if you just want to keep it a little bit more chill. Yeah, so those are my thoughts. There's still a lot more to cover on the Integra Type S, and I'll make follow-up videos. I wanted to make this driving video with me while I'm out doing some stuff to be able to share what this car is like, my initial impressions after allowing it to soak in for a little bit more, things that I like, things that I dislike, would I recommend it, and things like that. So stay tuned. I'm gonna have a bunch more videos. I already have a lot on my channel right now, so watch the shorts, watch the you know, fuller length videos and things that are coming out. That way you get an understanding of the car. Catch you in the next video. Let me know if you have questions. I know there's a bunch that I didn't answer here, so let me know if you have questions. Please leave a comment and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Catch you in the next video. Peace.